Hey there, Lewis here from Status Coup. We heard yesterday on our friend Joe Rogan's podcast that he decided to throw some names out there for who he would like to see run for president in 2024 and who he may be throwing some of his support behind. You may be unsurprised to hear that that person is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. On the podcast yesterday, he said, and I quote, that Ron DeSantis would work as a good president. We'll take a look at the clip right here.
Yeah, so all this stuff is happening while we have a dead man as a president.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
Are you throwing out any
it's not fun.
Any support towards anyone, or are you going to hold off and
True.
I know, didn't Elon Musk come out recently for DeSantis?
Yeah, I think Ron DeSantis would work as a good president. I mean, what he's done for Florida has been admirable.
Look, I feel like I'm doing breaking news right now.
Yeah.
That wasn't even on purpose.
I feel like what he did for Florida, a lot of people gave him a lot of grief, but ultimately he was correct. He was correct when it comes to like deaths.
So you'll probably not be surprised to hear there Joe Rogan saying that one of the main reasons he's supporting Governor DeSantis was his stance on how to handle the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a big deal when Joe Rogan made his announcement that he was leaving California, moving to Texas, where I am located now, in favor of Texas's more or lack of restrictions during the COVID-19 pandemic. Florida has very similar restrictions to Texas's, again, meaning that there were essentially none. So that's a big reason here that it seems as if Rogan is throwing his support behind DeSantis. No mention during this podcast of DeSantis's recent, in the last few months, passage of the Don't Say Gay bill, as it's commonly referred to in the state of Florida. Of course, Status Coup was on the ground a few months ago covering the passage of that bill that is going to be very harmful to LGBTQ students as well as potentially teachers in the state of Florida. The bill uses extremely broad language that back during the reporting trip that Jordan went on to the state, he reported on it and started to raise some of those concerns and was hearing those concerns both from students, from teachers, as well as from state legislatures. We can take a look at some of those clips now.
Yes, we call it the Don't Say Gay bill because it prohibits classroom instruction or inclusion of LGBTQ people, particularly sexual orientation or gender identity. So they're really singling us out, our community out, and they have said that really in so much of the rhetoric and their defense of the Don't Say Gay bill.
So first of all, it's not even accurate. His depiction of the bill is not accurate. It is not only K to third grade, but then it has the word or in it. And honestly, if it was just kindergarten or third grade, I feel like there could have been, less outrage around that because we could try to work with the bill sponsor to see if there was a way to ensure that at least there's protections for kid conversations around these topics. But the word or is in the bill. I don't care how many times these hyper-conservative voices want to ignore that. The word or is in the bill, and it says, or whenever not deemed age appropriate. That is not even defined, meaning that the Department of Education, which already removed anti-LGBTQ plus bullying curriculum from their website in December of 2021, would be the ones to decide when is it age appropriate to acknowledge that LGBTQ plus people exist.
As you can hear in some of those clips, you've got a state representative pointing out the fact that the word or is in place. A couple months back, again, on the Joe Rogan podcast, he talked about the bill and quoted that, this is between kindergarten and third grade. The issue here is that it says between kindergarten and third grade or unless not age appropriate. That's a big issue because that's a very non-specific way to describe something. Who decides what is age appropriate? There is no law about what specific thing to talk about being age appropriate one way or the other. So that puts a lot of teachers and students in a tricky predicament. There are also clauses in here, again, about teachers needing to out their students if they find out that they're out in school. And a lot of kids in Florida may be in a home situation where they're not comfortable telling their parents yet. I know personally, I didn't have any concerns at home about telling my parents, but I just didn't want them to know. Personally, I am gay. And I did not tell my parents first. I came out to a close group of friends first. And when I felt ready, that's when I determined that it was time for me to tell my parents. To have somebody else go ahead and make that leap for you is a big deal for any queer person to have that happen to them. Unfortunately, though, a lot of these concerns that, again, representatives, students, and teachers were having over the bill a few months back when Jordan and the Status Coup team were reporting on this issue seem to be coming true. I'm going to read from a couple articles here. This first article here is from Orange County, Florida. School districts at this point essentially are starting to make their rules for the next school year. And I'm going to read from the bottom paragraph here. According to representatives of the county's Teachers Association, teachers and staff members will be disallowed from wearing rainbow articles of clothing, including lanyards distributed by the school district last year. Elementary level teachers reported being discouraged from putting pictures of their same-sex spouse on their desk or talking about them to their students. So here, now we have teachers and students in a real predicament. I don't know if you remember back in school, but I mean, my teachers had pictures of their families on their desk all the time. They would often talk about what they did on their weekend. If you're a gay, lesbian, or queer teacher in general, you're just supposed to not talk about it. And on top of that, this is bad for students as well. I mean, as a gay person myself, it's tricky to picture, what it would be like to not have good, positive gay role models. I know as a kid, I really didn't have good, positive gay role models. If I did, I probably would have had a much easier time coming out, and I would have done so sooner than I did. Instead of having these positive role models in a place like a school, where are students and kids going to have these people around? Again, it's gross to hear people talking about folks like this as groomers, and that if you're a gay teacher, you're a groomer. Like, that's fucked up, number one. And number two, like, they're just trying to be a positive role model for people. And, as a kid to look up and see, like, oh, this is a gay person who has a happy, normal life. Like, maybe I can be gay and also have a happy, normal life. That means a lot for a little kid to look up to a teacher and see that. They're not looking for whatever the people on the right who are pointing this as a anti-grooming bill are looking at. I don't know what world they're living in that they think that this is what this is about. The reason people are upset about this is because regular people who happen to be gay or lesbian or whatever can't just do the exact same things that straight people do. To be discouraged from having a photo of your significant other on your desk, that's insane. To not be able to talk about what you did on your weekend as innocent as going fucking kayaking with your significant other. What? This is absolutely insane, and the fact that, again, that this is happening in 2022 is wild. And again, all of these concerns were brought up months ago during the passage of this bill before it was actually passed, and now we're actually, as we start to get into this new school year, are starting to see them come to fruition.
So the conversation then becomes, well, we don't want, the conversation with the Republicans is, we don't want to talk about sexual things. Okay, I can understand that. That's fine. So when we have offered amendments to say, listen, like, you don't want to talk about sexual things, then let's just say human sexuality, period. So that covers everything. That covers heterosexual relationships and sex. That covers same-sex relationships and sex. Well, I think that takes away from the intent of the bill. So then that brings me back to the question, what is the intent of the bill?
So I will say it does start to scare me a bit to see, somebody like DeSantis starting to rise up into power, and to see the most popular podcaster in the United States essentially throwing his name behind Ron DeSantis at this point. I do think that if Ron DeSantis were to become president, he would be able to do far more damage than President Trump was or will be able to do if he were to become president again, just because he knows how to work within a government system. Trump got in there and he was a businessman background, so he thought he was going to be able to essentially come in and just do what a businessman does and say, we're going to do this, go through and push the legislation through and have it be done. He was not ready to work with the legislature to pass anything, and that's why legislatively President Trump really was not able to get much done. Ron DeSantis, on the other hand, does have that experience, knows how to work in the legislature because he's been doing it in the role as governor in the state of Florida. One reason, though, that I do not think we're going to need to be worried about Ron DeSantis as president is he is going to have a very hard time running against former President Trump in a Republican primary, and I'll explain exactly why I think that. Donald Trump's base is very locked into him, right? Ron DeSantis does have a growing base. I mean, a couple weeks ago, we actually saw a poll come out of the state of New Hampshire. Obviously, New Hampshire is the first presidential primary state right after the Iowa caucuses. And in the state of New Hampshire, DeSantis and Trump were essentially tied in that poll. However, that is going to change once we start to see the presidential debates happen and we start to see, an actual announcements of people running. So once we see Donald Trump throw his hat in the ring, which I can assure you will, and we see Ron DeSantis do the same, DeSantis is going to be in a tricky situation. Now, DeSantis' base is made up of a lot of people that are in Trump's base. Those folks are going to, 9 times out of 10, be more loyal to Donald Trump than they are to Ron DeSantis. So DeSantis is going to have a very hard time criticizing Donald Trump on anything. DeSantis' entire presidential run is going to essentially need to be on the premise of, Donald Trump, you did a great job, but it's time to pass the torch on to somebody new. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is probably going to come up with some sort of nickname on Ron DeSantis, and he's going to nitpick every policy decision he has ever done since he's been governor of Florida, and he'll probably just straight up start calling him names if he does try to get into it. And DeSantis is not going to be able to attack back because he's going to risk losing his own voting base. So all in all, I really think this is not going to be a close thing once it actually gets to the primaries. Sure, there's going to be polls coming out over the next weeks and months before people start to announce and things start to actually shake out. But when it actually gets time to have debates and actual primary voting, I think it's going to be Trump in a landslide as the Republican nominee for the Republican Party in 2024. Thanks for watching this video. Please give it a like down below and subscribe if you are not already. The only reason we're able to go back and reference some of these clips is because of folks becoming members. Your membership allows us to go on reporting trips to places like Florida to cover the Don't Say Gay bill when it was being pushed through the legislature in Florida. Again, we had folks on the ground across the country this past weekend covering protests over Roe v. Wade being overturned. That is only possible by our paying members, so please consider joining statuscoup.com/join to do so.
Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.